You're wanting to give veganism a go, but for years you've been putting it off because you think that you have to be giving up your favourite foods, or you have to be perfect or else you'll fail. Well, I'm here to tell you that isn't the case, and in this video I will be sharing my advice and tips for your vegan journey as an imperfect vegan myself. But before we dive in, I want to give you a bit of background on my veganism journey, and if you're wanting to skip this, use the timestamps below to skip to the good stuff. But I'm hoping by sharing my own experiences, I'm able to encourage and inspire you to take on veganism for yourself. 2026 marks my third year as being a vegan, and I'm also turning 30 this year, so in the grand scheme of things, I haven't been vegan all that long. If you're new to my channel, my content is about my lifelong passion for the ocean, conservation, and protecting this amazing planet that we live on. So for the longest time, I've had all the motives behind me to go vegan all this time, but there was a few hurdles that I had to overcome first, a few of them in which I will talk about in this video later on. But the main culprits were lack of information or misinformation, fear of giving up my favourite foods, and also the pressure to be perfect. Since taking my content creation journey seriously a few years ago and consuming a lot of content around how veganism is a great way to help reduce pressure on our oceans and our climate, I was ushering myself closer and closer to that edge of commitment, and I thought it was about time that I practiced what I preached. So my journey started around 2019 when I was still living at home. I was still eating a lot of red meat at the time, specifically minced beef, as my mum was doing a lot of the cooking, so she used to use this a lot when she was bulk prepping meals for us. I remember suddenly going off mincemeat altogether, and I was really put off by the fatty and gritty texture of it, and it just gave me the ick. So I managed to cut that out really easily without actually thinking about it. But when I did look into it, I thought, how easy would it be to cut out other red meats and even fish in this diet, and maybe I could even start to go vegetarian. This is where I tried a lot of Quorn products to replace the meat that I was eating, and this was one of the main protein sources at the time that I could find in the supermarkets. I was using Quorn to subsidise chicken in a lot of my meals when I started cooking for myself at home, and then before I knew it, I didn't actually miss chicken at all. I wasn't really a fan of pork or other red meat like steak either, so that kind of went amiss really. I didn't really think about cutting it out, and I kind of never went back after that. The next biggest hurdle for me was fish. So I didn't eat a lot of fish at the time, but when I did, I really enjoyed like prawns and salmon, even though I didn't eat it regularly at all. But this was before Seaspiracy was released in 2021, and then all of a sudden my social feeds were flooded with reasons as to give up seafood in your diet. And when looking into this, the topic that tipped me over the edge with seafood was the topic of bycatch. I remember seeing one of my favourite marine artists, Francesca Page. She painted this amazing piece called Bycatch, and I remember seeing it for the first time, and I was so mesmerised yet so distraught over this image that I was seeing. That was literally the tipping point for me, and I remember seeing it and like, no, I can't contribute to this anymore. If I love the ocean so much, I need to start practicing what I preach. I'm not going to miss it, and I'd rather put my ethics and my passion for the ocean before consuming fish. So this is where I drew the line, and then I also bought the limited edition print from Francesca, and now it lives in my office as a nice reminder of my commitment that day. The next hurdle for me, and I think this is where a lot of people struggle if they're wanting to try veganism, is your dairy products, so your milk, your cheese, and your yogurt. I had milk in my daily tea, and I also had a lot of Greek yogurt, and then when I did have cheese, even though I didn't have it often, I used to pile it high on my pasta, or I used to shove it, loads of it, in my toasties. So I ate quite a lot of it when I did eat it. So fast forward to 2022, you can see over time I've started to phase out different things slowly, not all together. So the next thing for me was cheese. Even though I didn't eat it a lot, I wanted to be a bit healthier because I knew cheese wasn't that good for you. So I started just reducing that, and also then cutting it out of the meals that I was having it in. I did miss that at first, but then I started to try and find vegan alternatives, and the main thing for me was feta cheese. I can't really tell the difference between vegan feta cheese and normal feta cheese now, so that was a big win for me because I loved feta cheese in like my summer salads, and also I like it on my pasta sometimes as well. So that was a big win for me to find that swap, and it made cutting out cheese from my diet so much easier. Milk, however, was a struggle for a while. I really struggled with the taste of oat milk or soy milk in my cups of tea in the morning, and for a while I kind of just went off trying it, and I thought, you know what, maybe I can't go fully vegan. Like, I need my brew in the morning, and if I can't have that with milk, like, I'd rather just not have it. So that was a struggle, but after a few months I went to try a different oat milk, and I found the one from Aldi, the barista style oat milk, was actually really good in my tea, and all of a sudden I just liked it, and I was like, oh my god, I can actually finally swap milk out. So that was another big win for me when I finally found a product that I liked that I could swap out. And I also didn't really struggle with Greek yogurt alternatives. I just kind of swapped to soy yogurt, and although I do sometimes miss like the thicker texture of Greek yogurt, I feel like some alternatives now are getting to that point where the thickness and like the consistency is very, very similar, to the point where I don't even really compare, and I just prefer that option now anyway. So again, another big win and another big swap ticked off my list. So the only thing left really was eggs for me. So I was vegetarian by this point for about 2 years, and I was at that point of trying to commit to going vegan most days of the week. But then I was really worried that I wasn't going to be getting enough protein in my diet. Again, this is another big topic and another ideation around veganism, and you're not getting enough protein in your diet. And I kind of clung on to that for a little while, mainly because, again, lack of information, lack of education. So what I was doing is I was using eggs to meal prep in the morning for my breakfasts, and I thought, if that's the only thing that I'm having, you know, it might be fine. You know, I'm buying free range eggs. They're a good protein source. Like, you know, maybe it's okay to have this. But I remember driving to work one day and I was listening to a podcast with a scientist on it, and he was talking about the egg industry and veganism in general, and how it's a better for you diet, comparing it to the, you know, the different types of proteins out there, and also how marketing has like drastically affected our mindset and our ideation of animal products being better for you than plant stuff. So it was really, really interesting. But I remember listening to it at the end, and I was literally like with my steering wheel like, oh my god, like swearing, just thinking, fine, I'll go vegan, I'll cut eggs out. And I think that pivotal moment for me was when I was like, you know what, it's not even worth it. If I just make sure that I get enough protein from my diet elsewhere, I will be fine. So I've been vegan for nearly 3 years now. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I've been perfect throughout that entire time. I'd probably say that I've been 98% on track with my veganism. I've bought things that I didn't realise had dairy products in them, and I didn't want them to go to waste. Or I will be on holiday and there'll be like little to no vegan options, especially in Europe. Some places in Europe I found really hard to eat vegan. And I know some actual vegans would be like, you know, there is other places, you just weren't looking hard enough. But where I was at the time in my situation, I found some places quite difficult. So I give myself grace there, but I feel like I'm really proud of myself for actually getting to this point where 98% of the time I am fully vegan. I'm fully vegan at home, and I just do my best, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. By the way, when I say 98% vegan, I've never touched meat or fish since. It's just been the odd dairy thing now and again. So now you know a bit more about my background to veganism. My first piece of advice for you is to not expect to be perfect when you first start becoming a vegan. There's a saying in the veganism and environmental community that it's better to have 1,000 imperfect vegans than 100 perfect vegans. And I stand behind this wholeheartedly 100%, because I feel like it's so true. We'd rather get more people eating plant-based and making more vegan option choices rather than having to commit fully, feeling guilty, slipping up, and then falling back into old habits. So I do feel like take the pressure off yourself from being perfect, and it helps so much when you're first starting out. Every small change that a person makes adds up when there's loads of people doing it together. So just be mindful that every swap that you make makes a difference overall. And there's also so many factors to take into consideration as to why someone may not be able to or doesn't want to go vegan. So I feel like it's really important not to judge people on their choices and their decisions on veganism, and just kind of do your best, and also don't judge other people for doing their best as well. The hardcore vegans will come at me for this, but I do truly believe that if you hold yourself to this perfect ideation of veganism and you're not allowed to slip up and you need to 100% be perfect, then a lot of people won't do that because it's too hard, the barrier to entry is too high, and also people will just give up if they slip up. So I feel like it's more important to encourage people to make smaller choices and also not to be perfect rather than 100% going in for it. For some people, veganism as a choice is a huge lifestyle change, and A lot of people aren't willing to commit to that level 100%, especially when it's so easy to fall into old habits and old decisions about food. If we hold everyone up to this 100% perfect standard of veganism from the get-go, I think it's going to put a lot of people off, because a lot of people aren't as educated, they don't hold that level of empathy, and also they don't have the time or effort to be able to put into it sometimes. So I feel like it does more harm than good to be able to judge people on this level, and that you have to be perfect when you first start out. People tend to use the label plant-based for this reason. A lot of people think that you shouldn't use the word vegan if you're not 100% vegan all the time, so you should use the plant-based label instead. I personally don't label myself as plant-based because I've seen people online that have labeled themselves plant-based, but they'll still eat meat on occasion, which I never do. So I don't want there to be confusion when I'm out with friends or family to think that, oh, well, maybe eating meat sometimes is okay. That is a non-negotiable for me. Plus, I think in general, the word vegan is more identifiable and more well-known. So people can easily say, oh, you don't eat meat, you don't eat dairy, you don't eat eggs. That's fine, we know what to give you. Whereas plant-based can sometimes be a bit more confusing. I could go on talking about the hardcore veganism and plant-based movement, but this is about giving you advice and tips for your vegan journey, so let's crack on. My next bit of advice is to learn how to drown out the noise and just focus on you, yourself, and your why. People pursue veganism for a few different reasons. The main ones are environmental impact, animal welfare, and health. It's important to understand that not everyone is going to accept or understand your why. The biggest problem I found with veganism so far is the amount of judgment, the guilt, and the misinformation that you have to deal with, especially when it comes from friends and family who are either uneducated in the choices and the lifestyle that you're making, or the fact that they think that your choices are an inconvenience to them. I also find that people jump into defensive mode when you try to explain your why to them, and usually this is coming from when they've asked the question first. And I do think that sometimes this is down to that person's own personal guilt and lack of education, none of which is your responsibility. You're very likely to encounter at least one of these problems, so mentally preparing yourself to cut out the noise. You'll be repeating your why constantly, and it's very draining. So try to reduce the amount of time that you have to expose yourself to those situations. Before you go vegan, it's really important that you speak to your doctor and do your own research to make sure that everything that you're swapping to has enough nutrients in that you'll need, so you're not going to be missing any vital vitamins or nutrients from your diet. And also consider any allergies or health problems that you may have. If you eat a well-balanced vegan diet, you can actually get all the nutrients you need from plants. I do take a B12 supplement now and again. I do get this from nutritional yeast and tofu and fortified milks, but it's important to speak with your doctor and make sure that you're not missing out or you're not undernourished in any fields. And people that go vegan do recommend that you take a B12 supplement to make sure that you're actually getting enough. But I find that these days, because a lot of plant-based products are fortified, you don't actually need to buy additional vitamins and minerals. But again, this is not health advice. Please go speak to your doctor. This one was a big one for me, and it's what made my veganism journey successful, and that is to swap out one animal product at a time. Take your time doing this. You need to be able to take time to find the alternatives that you prefer, and also making sure that you're swapping like nutrition for nutrition. So doing it slowly and one product at a time makes it so much more manageable, less stressful, and you have less pressure on yourself. It can take a lot of time finding your preferred swaps, especially when you're comparing price, textures, and flavors from different things. So just take your time with this process. Once you've found enough swaps, make it easy for yourself by finding 5 to 10 recipe ideas that you can bulk prep and you can repeat throughout the week and throughout the month for your friends and family and yourself. It takes off the pressure of having to come up with something to cook on the spot, especially when you first start your veganism journey. And it also makes sure that you've got the right things on your shopping list as well. I find this super helpful, especially if I know that I'm going to be somewhere where I'm not sure what vegan options there are available, or if I don't know what's going to be in the food, I'll either take my own things or I'll just research beforehand. And if you accidentally eat something that isn't vegan, or you're not sure what is actually in the product, don't stress over it. It really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things if you eat one thing that isn't vegan on your entire life's vegan journey. For example, I've bought a bag of crisps or chips if you're American from the supermarket before, and getting home and starting eating them, looking at the label, I didn't actually realise that they had milk in it, and I was like, oops, oh well, I might as well finish this because otherwise it's going to go to waste. And then obviously I didn't make that mistake again. But if you let a little blip like that get to you, it might put you off altogether, and you might spiral and think that you're not cut out to be a vegan, which is not the case. So just don't stress over the little mistakes you might or probably will make on this journey. And another thing as well, if you've got a crazy craving and you can't stop thinking about it, just give in to the craving, especially if it's just a one-off or it's a special occasion like Christmas or a birthday. Just give in to it. You can get back on track afterwards, and also bonus points if you can recreate that craving in a plant-based form afterwards. There's no point making yourself feel bad and making yourself feel restricted, because you're going to then fall back into old habits and you might even fall off the rails completely. If you're feeling discouraged at any point throughout your journey, just remember how far you've come, and also remind yourself regularly of your why, and it will hopefully get you right back on track. My reminder is my love for the ocean, and I get peace of mind knowing that I'm not contributing to any destructive fishing practices or bycatch. If you've been trying to go vegan for a while and you can't quite commit 100%, then just stick to meatless Mondays or going plant-based 2 or 3 times a week. It still makes a really big difference. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in finding out more about how veganism can impact our planet and our health, and also the comparison between animal products and a plant-based diet. It's really interesting, but there's a lot to cover, so it would have to be in a separate video. And again, if you're not quite comfortable in calling yourself a vegan just yet, then don't stress about it. I feel like labels can sometimes be limiting and restricting. So again, just do your best and don't explain yourself to anyone else that doesn't understand. I wish you all the best on your new journey to veganism, and I really can't wait to hear how you get on. So please let me know in the comments if you found this video useful, and also how you're getting on with your journey. If you wanted to stick around, then you can watch my video on me unpacking my favorite piece of artwork and how it helped me take the plunge into veganism. I'll see you over there.